we had two research papers, one by Elizabeth and one by Marjorie. Elizabeth did a study, an in-depth study on the comparison between existential psychotherapy as it is conventionally understood. Especially recently there was a book published by Dr. Yalom. You may have heard of it.
No.
He puts together the existential psychotherapies as they are now practiced in America. And he compares it with metapsychiatry.
Yes.
And it is a study that highlights the differences a great deal and helps us to understand metapsychiatry better. So she will start out with that, and then Marjorie had a paper on the comparison between the personal mind and the divine mind.
Okay.
And she will do that later on. So we'll start with Elizabeth.
Go ahead, Elizabeth.
Hi, Dr. Hora.
Hi.
Dr. Yalom talks about the basics of therapy as being that we need to look at the four basic concerns of existence, which would be death, freedom, isolation, and meaninglessness. And what I did was sort of talk about his understanding of those things and then compared them with how metapsychiatry has illuminated them.
Yeah.
And one of the things he says, just briefly, about therapy is that his idea is that one must encounter death in order to appreciate life and take responsibility for freedom by an act of will, which the therapist influences in therapy, and resolve his sense of isolation through the experience of intimacy in the therapeutic relationship. And then on meaninglessness, he says the solution is engagement in life. And he says that meaninglessness must be looked away from. And then he quotes from the Buddha saying that the question of meaning in life is, as the Buddha taught, not edifying. That one must immerse oneself in the river of life and let the question drift away. And I was wondering if there's any validity to this teaching about immersing oneself in the river of life and letting the question of meaning drift away.
Well, you see, we are viewing reality on an entirely different wavelength. None of those things have any relevance to metapsychiatry and the way metapsychiatry views things, and it sounds like the atheistic philosophy of existentialism.
Yes, that's what we pointed out, that it was godless.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Absolutely godless, and whatever is godless is futile because it lacks reality. So no matter what you say, all those things that you enumerated have absolutely no relevancy to our way of seeing life. Even the idea of life is different. So he apparently thinks about how to conduct oneself in life and how to cope with all the various, these four aspects of human experience. And these are typical speculations of atheistic philosophers of existentialism, like Sartre and some of the others.
Yes, it seemed very depressing to me in studying it.
No wonder existentialism had taken out a very unfavorable reputation. People got scared of it.
Yeah. For my application, I compared. I talked a little bit about agoraphobia.
Yeah.
Since it's sort of based on this idea of there being nothing underneath us, about life being groundless, and the fear that there's nothing steady in our lives.
Nothing to lean on.
And I was wondering if you could, is there a general metapsychiatric understanding of agoraphobia?
Yeah. Well, all phobias have one thing in common. The individual assumes that he ought to be able to control life in all its aspects. And this assumption, of course, leads to fear of not being able to control situations. The more we believe that one should be able to control every contingency of life, the more panicky one becomes, because the realization is constantly threatening that we on our own self, we can do nothing. And without God, it just doesn't make any sense, right?
Right. So a client needs to be shown that they're not expected to have control, but that God does?
Of course. Of course. Trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and lean not unto thine own understanding. See, we are viewing reality on an entirely different wavelength, entirely different dimension. We are basing ourselves in spiritual reality, where these people are just talking psychology in an ordered form. Instead of interpersonal, even it speaks about intimacy between patient and therapist. Well, he probably doesn't practice therapy because if he knew that is full of pitfalls.
He must have misquoted the Buddha then too, probably.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Would you repeat what the quotation was of the Buddha?
He says the question of meaning in life
Yeah.
is, as the Buddha taught, not edifying. One must immerse
Not edifying.
Not edifying, yes.
Edifying.
Uh-huh.
What?
One must immerse oneself in the river of life and let the question drift away.
Well, perhaps Buddha was saying intellectual knowledge is not sufficient for effective life, but existential commitment.
Yeah.
That sounds better.
Right?
Yes, that sounds better.
Yeah.
So the only value in really looking at these ideas would be to appreciate the beauty of God-centered therapy, wouldn't it?
Well, of course. Of course.
Dr. Hora, this is Marjorie.
Yeah.
I was wondering how it seems as if this type of therapy is another way of expressing the human condition. How is it important to see the human condition in juxtaposition to existential metapsychiatry? How does this work so that we does it help us form a basis or a firm ground to see the human condition in contrast with existential metapsychiatry, so that we can see what is needed each moment we're confronted with these human conditions and human ideas?
Yeah, your point is very well taken, Marjorie. This Dr. Yalom is his name.
Yes.
Probably is speculating about how to cope with the human condition. Now, we don't cope with the human condition, we transcend it. As Jesus put it, in this world ye shall have tribulation, but be of good cheer, I have overcome the world. We are following the teachings of Jesus, and metapsychiatry is a method whereby everyone can overcome the world the way Jesus taught us to do. By the way, the human condition was characterized by Buddha as Maya or samsara, which means illusion. So how are you going to make an illusion work? Immersing oneself in the river of life means committing oneself to being here for God, not intellectually, but existentially.
That's beautiful.
It seems important that what came up this morning in the discussion, that metapsychiatry has developed an extensive understanding of the Maya condition, more than any other school of thought. For instance, the Buddha even has just one word for it. I haven't studied it, but I don't think that they have developed a very detailed understanding of the Maya, as we have. We have the hierarchy of values, the 5 gates of hell, and a very detailed understanding of it.
And the 7 steps of seeing.
7 steps of seeing. Yes, so I think the more precise we know the nature of the Maya, the more we are protected from pitfalls. Would that be correct?
Yes, certainly. And when we work with the 2 intelligent questions, we are always starting to understand the errors in order to correct it with the truth. Understand unreality, see the unreality underlying the human condition, and that in juxtaposition to that error, we are able to discern the healing truth in more
Relevant ways.
yes, complete and relevant ways. Right, yeah.
Yeah, but that is what metapsychiatry, the way it differs from any other school of thought. That it always starts out with the question, what is the meaning?
Yes, right.
And nobody else does that, so far as I know. And even students of metapsychiatry don't like that question too well.
Because they're afraid they won't be able to answer it.
Yes.
Yes. But as I have many times said, we don't have to answer it. It has to answer itself.
I see.
We ask the question and we don't try to answer it.
Yes.
We allow it to emerge in our awareness.
But then we are also afraid to hear the answer.
Well, there are all kinds of ways that
Yeah.
people are struggling against
Yeah.
the truth.
Well, it would seem to be necessary that we have that we hear the answers and know the error that we are involved in,
Yeah, but of course,
rather than just saying, "Oh, this is evil," and there are no 2 powers, as some others say.
yeah.
That's easy to say, but that doesn't really mean that you can. You have to know more precise what you are involved with.
You have to be specific in your uncovering of the error.
Right.
I wanted to, there's a prayer that we have, everything and everyone in the entire universe is here for God, whether they know it or not.
Yes.
And Jan was mentioning to me the other day that, I think this is what he said, that it makes no difference, what you do or say, you're here for God in spite of yourself, I guess. Is that correct?
Well, it makes a great deal of difference if we know it, if we love it, and if we are committed to living that way. That's what it means to immerse oneself in the river of life. We immerse oneself in a life which is God. the divine life. And that is existential commitment. And that there is a great deal of reluctance to do that. Now, I know a few research associates who have their own practices, and they keep coming back to me with their family problems. And as I listen to them, it becomes clear that they are much more interested in using metapsychiatry on other people rather than committing themselves to it individually themselves. Everybody is eager to use it on others. But Jesus said, if physician, heal thyself. First, we have to take metapsychiatry and let it heal us. For as the biblical passage says, first cast out the beam of thine own eye, and then shalt thou see to remove the mote from thy brother's eye. But the way human nature is, and especially people who are in the practice, they much prefer to use what they are learning on their patients, and they forget to apply it to themselves. And then they have family problems, marital problems, physical problems, financial problems. It's all because of this perversity that we'd rather apply it on to other people. As it is still the remnant of the old operationalism. One can use metapsychiatry to operate on other people. But it will not be effective until we have applied it to our own life in radical sincerity.
Dr. Hora, how could one know that one was doing that? Would it be the problems that would come up?
Yes, of course.
So our problems are what are tuning us into what is needed to learn in our own mode or our own.
Yes, of course.
In doing this paper on personal mind versus one mind, I came across one of your ideas that you had written in dialogues. You said personal mind ambitiously looks for results and often has a false sense of responsibility toward himself and others.
Yes.
And I realized that seems to be what I have as the impression that to seek the truth, I'm to do something to get results, to appear to be becoming enlightened or something. And it seems as if that this enlightenment or seeking the truth has nothing to do with anything like that at all. But I can't seem to clearly understand what that means to just let be.
We have to be able to heal ourselves with the two intelligent questions. We have to be able to heal every problem that comes along with the two intelligent questions. And then we will be qualified and capable of really benefiting others. If we cannot benefit ourselves, we cannot expect to be very helpful to others.
I have something that just occurred to me that maybe this would be more helpful, that I could ask more practical. At our school, I'm a junior high teacher, it suddenly came to my attention that supposedly there are some students who I happen to be involved with or teaching, and I wasn't aware of this, that are supposedly heavily involved off and on with some amphetamines, some drugs, basically uppers. And I became, my old mode of being was telling me that I should do something and that I should talk to these children, or I should let them know that this is bad or horrible. And I could see that that certainly wouldn't be of any aid, because in the past it's always been, like you said, very troublesome. And it makes things worse instead of really helping. But I did take one student aside and go through my whole routine of preaching. And I thought, one student, I won't do it all, but one student would be all right. One at a time, right? And I could see as I was talking to the student that this was completely foolish and just, total waste of time. And I'm gradually, and this is like in just the last couple of days, finally last night I was sitting and I was thinking it would be more helpful to pray. But I really don't know how to pray without saying something like, God, will you do something for these kids and get them out of this situation? So it seems like I need to pray for myself. Now, where does one start in this area?
Well, whenever something is disturbing us or provoking us or intimidating us or seducing us to be judgmental and critical
Yeah.
and therapeutic,
Absolutely.
the therapeuticizing people is a form of trespassing, tyrannizing them.
Yes.
What we must do is to pray for the purification of our consciousness. In our meditation, we seek to dismiss all critical thoughts and judgmental thoughts until we are able to behold that individual as being here for God. Absolutely. And see him that way without preaching, without saying anything, just in the secret place of the Most High, in the highest level of consciousness. We behold him as being here for God. It's a divine idea, a living soul, or a non-dimensional unit of awareness. And when we have found our peace and are able to behold the individual that way, we leave him in God's care. And we don't have to preach, we don't have to do anything. Once we have found our peace and are able to see him without the least amount of condemnation or blaming, then a healing will take place. It usually does. So we purify our own consciousness, eliminating all judgmentalism and beholding the individual in the truth of his being.
So
This is the most effective way to be helpful in any situation.
So this purification of your own consciousness
Yes.
allows you to approach individuals more truthfully. Therefore, there's a sense of freedom there. You're releasing them from your own
Condemnation.
yes, and they belong to God. I had another question in with my paper. Also, you mentioned in dialogues, you mentioned the St. Paul's statement, bringing into captivity every thought to the obedience of Christ. And I wanted to understand the meaning of that statement that St. Paul made in Corinthians.
What does this very strange statement mean? It simply means that we must focus our attention on spiritual reality rather than on imagination and visualization and fantasy and condemnation, etc., etc. Thus, spiritualizing our outlook on life and on any particular situation with which we happen to be confronted at that particular time. That's what it means, bringing into captivity every thought to the obedience of Christ. Christ-like thinking, Christ-like values, Christly perspective. That's what the healing, that's where the healing power lies.
What would be the metapsychiatry definition of obedience?
Paying attention to that which is Christ-like and cherishing it. In psychology, the word obedience is intimately connected to behavior. You obey commands which order you to behave in certain way. Or in the army, you obey rules.
Right.
Right?
Yes. And in the convent.
The convent.
I've always had very much trouble with this word obedience.
Yeah. Well, in metapsychiatry, obedience doesn't refer to behavior. It refers to loving and cherishing and accepting certain values, which are Christ-like, Christly values, spiritual quality. Everything takes place in consciousness. Our work is mainly taking place in consciousness rather than in interaction. We are constantly working on the quality of our consciousness. It is the secret place of the Most High, which means it's the highest level of reality. We seek to maintain our consciousness at the highest level of reality. And that is the power which heals and harmonizes everything.
Dr. Hora, this is Faye.
Yes.
On Marjorie's paper, Personal Mind versus the One Mind, one of her statements is personal mind is characterized by restlessness, tiredness. It's filled with imaginings, fantasies, and worries.
Yeah.
And one of the things that Marjorie talked about, and I've experienced this quite often, is in writing this paper, she became very tired.
Yeah.
And she said she wrote it for a while and then went to bed, slept for 3 hours. And this has happened to me not only with writing things, but also with, with problems. And in the past month or so, last week I was fired. But before I was fired, basically, I would sleep, but I would wake up in the middle of the night with all these fantasies going on in my head. since the initial firing and some healing that has happened from it, I have had a tiredness that I sleep all night. It's a different kind, and I was wondering what the meaning of what seems to me a healing sleeping compared to a restless sleep.
Well, of course, the more you maintain your consciousness on a spiritual level, the more peaceful will be your sleep, and the more restful it will be. But if you're involved with interaction, thinking, and fears and worries, then of course,
Still seem to be very tired,
yeah,
almost like I could go sleep right now. Well, when I get to work, I'm very tired.
you don't like to be there.
No, I don't. But what is the personal mind? What's functioning with the personal mind when this tiredness or the sleepiness goes on?
The personal mind does everything that creates problems. It is interactive. It thinks in terms of interactions and criticisms and judging and being afraid and self-confirmation, etc. It's self-confirmatory all the time, worrying about itself. But that's not reality. The important thing to know that that is not reality. Reality is spiritual, harmonious, very good.
So actually what would make me tired too would be any fantasies that I had of trying to fix up the problem at work or fix up any problem in my life.
Absolutely right.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Dr. Hora, this is Jenny.
Yes, Jimmy.
And in our conversation, we've been talking a lot about this personal mind, and it occurred to me in thinking that all of my life I've been programmed to either clean up my mind or improve my mind or change my mind, and the thought crossed my mind that the mind of my mind is already set. It is truth.
Yes.
And all of those activities that I've been programmed to do with it
Yes.
are not only fruitless, but they're total distraction.
Yes, of course. Self-confirmatory.
I've heard that before.
Yeah.
So then it seems that the only thing that's left is to be still and know.
Yeah, absolutely.
What?
You now became.
Which I now became?
Yeah.
Oh, and Jan says, which I now became, meaning still.
Yeah, right.
So there really is nothing to do.
There is the work to be done, but work in consciousness, not so much in the world as in consciousness. A real work takes place in consciousness.
Praying for purification.
Yeah, right. It's the struggle to see through the eyes of God.
Dr. Hora, this is Michael.
Yes, Mike.
I have some confusion about the praying for purification and at the same time not denying. Earlier, Jan got into the idea of the metaphysical schools denying appearances. And I'm not sure how to not deny and at the same time pray for purification.
Jan, could you clarify to me what Michael is saying?
Well, we had been talking about the importance of discovering the meaning of our problems. Whereas somebody brought up, said, well, but is it not enough to just deny the existence of two powers?
Yeah.
Well, of course, that's correct. There are no two powers. But you see a lot of people doing that and yet being a victim of certain pitfalls in their thinking.
Right.
So it's not enough to just deny that there is no evil, deny evil. One has to come to see in what way we are involved in it, even if it is embarrassing. And that is what purification, isn't that what the purification that you mentioned?
Yes. Well, psychologists are hung up on the word denial because some psychotic symptoms are based on denial of parts of the body, denial of the so-called realities. So they're afraid of this word denial. But of course, there is a difference between just intellectual denial or emotional denial, or psychotic denial, or the denial which is in juxtaposition to the affirmation or realization of the truth. For instance, if you would deny, you would say 2 and 2 is not 5. Right?
Yes.
Well, if you wouldn't right after that say 2 and 2 is 4, then you could think that 2 and 3 is 6 or 7.
Yes.
Denial by itself can be a problem. And beyond that, of course, many people remain on an intellectual level with their prayers and with their worshiping because they lack the existential commitment to the truth and to being here for God. Now, if we say there is no power in evil, well, that's nice, but unless you realize that God is the only power and the good of God is the only reality, then the denial becomes just a sham.
Yes, that's actually godless.
It will have just a cop-out or just fact. So denial can be a problem if you want to make it a problem. And you can use it to engage in polemics, both psychological and theological polemics. For instance, some people, some psychotherapists that get into our psychoanalytic school were saying, well, it's metapsychiatry. They just deny reality. That's what they deny everything. So it is really a psychotic system. So they satisfy themselves with this kind of a judgment. And it makes them more comfortable so they don't have to read the book.
Yeah.
But it's no problem for us. because we don't worry about being accepted or not accepted or rejected. We're not interested whether we are accepted or rejected. We are interested in liberation, redemption, freedom, health, and harmonious prospering. That's what we're interested in.
Dr. Hora, you mentioned that we become involved in polemics. What are those?
Theological polemics. Well, one of the most famous theological polemics in the Middle Ages was when theologians were arguing about how many angels can be counted on the head of the pin, at the end of it. The human mind is very perverse, and it always wants to be right and always wants to disprove everything that somebody else is saying. And that it is contentiousness and polemicism or something like that. Yeah. Yeah. So don't fall into that trap, Michael. Don't be a polemicist. Just try to understand that which can save you, which can bring you harmonious prospering in life. No need to polemize.
But Jan says to tell you that I've already fallen in. I'm trying to get out. And that's the next question.
Yeah.
My awareness is I'm extremely involved in the intellectual pursuits.
Yeah.
What do I need to understand to move to existential commitment?
Well, you know that intellectualism is one of the 5 gates of hell.
Yeah.
Now, what is needed is to become a sincere seeker after the truth rather than the intellectual. An intellectual wants to be known as knowing. Therefore, he isn't really finding the truth. He's always finding some fly in the ointment to argue about. So just focus attention on being a seeker, Michael, a sincere seeker after the truth which is redemptive. I would like to emphasize again that we seek the truth for our own redemption primarily. We don't seek the truth in order to hit other people over the head with it.
So the distinction is, there's nothing wrong with philosophical inquiry or even intellectual inquiry, as long as it is a search for truth.
Yeah, right.
And the distinction you make is when we try to argue or find fault or a fly in the ointment, that distinguishes us from the seeker then.
That's right.
Oh, that clarifies a great deal.
The seeker is interested in his own redemption, in his own salvation, primarily. And that is just. That is within the will of God. And secondarily, he will become a beneficial presence, and the truth which he has found will be a blessing to others. But not the other way around. We don't study metapsychiatry with the primary motivation of using it on other people.
Dr. Hora,
Yes.
this is Carol, and I have a question in regard to the paper I'm writing. I'm seeking the meaning to a specific problem I have, which is resentment. And I notice that I'm very quick to become resentful toward other people and situations. And my question is about my childhood, and my mother died when I was 6. And I wonder if death, would that bring about resentment, kind of a way of life that's resentful that she died and just left me?
Well, you are just speculating about this now, aren't you?
Yes, the thought came to mind the other night. My father also tends to be very resentful and set in his ways of thinking, and it just occurred to me. I just wondered if death is causes people to be resentful.
Anything can be interpreted as a personal injury, but resentfulness is primarily an indication that we want something or that we don't want something. And it is much more fruitful to look at it that way. And when you say that your father is set in his ways, is that what you said?
Yeah.
You are really saying that he's a willful man and a good thinker.
Yeah.
Well, that is always underlie resentfulness and frustration. So you don't have to look for a cause to your resentfulness, but the meaning. The meaning is thinking in terms of what we want and what we don't want, and what should be or what shouldn't be.
I see. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Dr. Hora, this is Alexandra.
Yes, Alexandra.
Are we always in life exactly where we're supposed to be?
We are always in the bosom of the Father, but we don't know it.
Okay, I was thinking about circumstances, because Beyond said that when we're in a situation, that when it's time for us to be lifted out of that situation, then that will occur.
Yes, of course.
And so, so what is the meaning of wanting to be lifted out of a particular situation then, I guess, prematurely?
And follow you. You know something that I don't know.
Yes, I'm in a situation now where I feel that perhaps it's not the best situation for me to be in. I'm trying to understand what the purpose is for my being in the situation, and it has to do with doing some work. And I find that that in the situation I'm critical of what else is going on. And I feel that on my own I could probably be accomplishing more.
Well, whatever your problem, you know that it is just designed for your edification. and proceed on that basis. And once you have learned the lesson, then usually there is a change. And you find yourself in another situation where another lesson is awaiting you.
Yes, I'm experiencing frustration. I should probably try to understand the meaning of the frustration then.
That's it. Frustration is always a sign of wanting and not wanting.
And in this situation, then I'm wanting certain things.
Undoubtedly. Even though you're being very cryptic about it.
Cryptic? But
You don't know the word cryptic? Does anybody know the word?
oh, you mean right now in discussing this?
Yes.
Oh, well,
You're not making it clear what is involved.
that's true. I am because I feel the details would take too long. There is a question here somewhere, and it's just not. It's evading me, or I'm evading it. Okay, the situation is that I'm graduating soon from the School of Ministry. I have been doing some assistant work at a particular church, and I no longer see things from that perspective that I have been trained in. And so I'm there, and I'm supposed to teach a class soon, and I guess I'm wondering how I'm supposed to teach a class that will teach people the basics of this particular way of of religious science. So Jan wants me to give you the whole, he's coaching me. Okay. So I'm supposed to teach a class in the basics of religious science. And I'm confused about what I'm doing there now and supposed to teach this thing that I no longer am that interested in or believe in completely, because I feel I'm moving on to something that makes a lot more sense to me, which is metapsychiatry. And I would rather be teaching metapsychiatry. Or not, or at least from that perspective. So I feel in a way that I'm being dishonest with this church, because I feel that I'm impersonating a person who believes in what they believe in. Does this make it clear?
Well, maybe they would be interested in hearing what you have to say about metapsychiatry.
I have given this particular person all the books, and yes, the minister of the church.
Yeah.
And to my knowledge, she hasn't read them because she's right now listening to a lot of tapes on success management. And the whole situation is very frustrating for me, and I don't know what I'm doing there, and I guess I'm wanting to be lifted out of it. Yet I spent, 3 years in training to reach this point, and I feel that I've already surpassed it before I even get started with my career. Because I really have no interest in being a minister or having a church. So I feel stuck.
So, so what do I need to know?
You need to know what God wants you to do. What does God want?
God wants me to be a beneficial presence.
To manifest His quality
Yes.
under all circumstances. And when you are committed to being here for God, neither for religious science nor for metapsychiatry, but for God, then the right situations will unfold before you.
So I'm to just go ahead and teach something that that doesn't make that much sense to me anymore.
But you can invite your students to consider possible alternatives. After all, is that a very rigid, dogmatic system of religion that you're involved with? Are they dogmatic?
No, they're not dogmatic. Just
Maybe they are open-minded, and they may consider other possibilities. Maybe the whole religious system could be redeemed. Yeah. That is.
would you repeat that?
The whole system could be redeemed by new insight.
I really have been considering how to incorporate.
No, it's not only incorporate it, you just expand the understanding of reality. The success management, of course, is very funny from where we stand.
Yes, it is, and that's where a lot of my frustration is, because this is someone who is superior to me. So I realize that it's not my place to change anyone else.
I heard of a minister of the Unitarian Church who had been recently fired from her church, and she spent days praying in front of a picture of another church, and she prayed that she should become the minister of that church, and she visualized herself.
Yes.
She's the minister of that big church, and that's how she prayed.
Yes, I've been exposed to that method. It's called visualization and success charting. You put up pictures of everything that you want, and it has to do with positive thinking.
We call it witchcraft.
Yes. Okay, I thank you very much, Dr. Hora. I see the time is just about up, so I'll turn you back to Jan.
Yeah, we have come to the end of our session. We'll discuss this further next week.
Okay, yeah.
Thanks a lot.
Bye, everyone.
Bye now.